But no, but I think it does go back to the initial question of like, yes, we all were drawn there, and there's something for us, right? And I think every all every kid really, they want to find a place where they belong. They want to find a place where they feel valued. They want to find a place where they feel like they have something to contribute, or they have, even if they don't feel like they have something to contribute, they're still part of the picture, right? And I think that's what VTP did for many of us. Was, yeah, this, it's better than what you're doing now. We would say that
Oh
all.
yeah, no,
That
sure.
was our slogan. All on. It was better than what we could have been doing otherwise, right?
Yeah.
And it gave us home. It gave us friends. It gave us family. It gave us opportunities to grow and hate each other and love each other at the same time, right? Um, Fast forwarding to our trip to Vancouver to go to the film school, it was, I loved it. But if you would have asked anyone, they said Mike was an idiot. Like, he was miserable the whole
No,
time,
it wasn't
right?
just you. You and another person had a
But
constant
but
battle.
I don't hold grudges to, like, the thing is, I could have, if that was like in an adult setting where a bunch of people, I would probably never speak to those people again. But
Mm.
I, in this sense, it was one of those things where it was such a unique nucleus of kids and individuals, and at that point we had grown up years together, right? Like, we'd spent so much time with each other that it almost became that family feud of, like, shut up, like,
Yeah.
no, you're wrong. We were comfortable with putting our foot down with each other, which I was so timid. I was so shy. I was, I would never speak up against anyone, even my peers. Like, I'd rather just like walk away, like pacifist. I don't like confrontation. I don't like fights, but I started these fights, and that, for me, that was never my personality. But with these people, I was like, nah, I'm not playing. Like, you don't get to call the shots, and I think that it helped us build our confidence, not just to perform, but just like life skills. Like,
Yeah.
you can let people walk all over you, or you can call them out for it. And I
Except
think,
on the, like, for someone watching it from the outside, you weren't right about everything either.
no,
when you, I mean, some of the things that you were standing up to and that the other people were standing up to, like, it was like, okay, guys, I'm going to pull you out of the corner here and just, like, both look at the situation, and you're both wrong. Like,
yeah,
you're not listening to each other because you both have valid points. Like,
but we learned
so,
something from that too,
and
right?
at the end of it, it ended up being like an incredible, hilarious um, film.
Well,
Yeah,
in fact, one of the things that appealed to me the most about VTP, certainly by the time we were well into Little Shop of Horrors, with this group, was as you both know, and as the audience will now find out, I'm not actually a big musical theater guy. I'm not a big theater guy at all. I've had to be converted slowly. But my whole thing was the democracy of being in a band, right? In a
yeah.
whatever you call it, rock band. Let's call it a rock band. And that democracy was that you're not there to be adjudicated. You're there to go out and bloody play. Just play stuff, do stuff, write stuff, perform stuff, record stuff, release stuff, play, and it was that spirit that I saw actually amongst the young people at VTP. That was at the core of it. That then branched out into the creativity of the production. And so that's really what I found so incredibly appealing.
And I don't think I don't feel like any of us were looking for like a payoff in the end. Like, it was depressing. We were depressed when the show was over.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh wow, like, where's my roses? Where's, like, bring the curtain down? Like, where's my encore? We were excited for our next performance. We were excited to find out what we're doing next. Like, we lived for the moment.
What's the next production, Cindy?
of
What are we
creation,
doing next,
right?
Cindy? What's
Yeah.
next, Cindy?
So, but in the reality of this as well, it's yes, I think looking back, a lot of this had to be the best part about this podcast is a lot of what we're talking about is coming from retrospect. Like in the moment, we didn't know what we were doing. We were just a bunch of misfits that found a home, that found a place, that found belonging, that found like-minded people, that found different-minded people that we learned from and grew from and adapted to. Like it was it was just the perfect chaos of a situation.
Right, and I think we brought that up before. Is like you guys had most of you had absolutely nothing to do with each other outside of theater.
Yeah.
You all
The
had your
second we
own-
left, like second practice was over, we scattered like
Yeah.
mice, right? We're like, okay, and sometimes it wasn't even goodbye. It was the second we stepped out the door of the shop or whatever. We didn't see each other until maybe school, and the other thing about it too was we didn't. I was a bit older than the rest of the cast, and there were two schools that, like in Vermilion, that all of us went to either one or the other. So it's not like we were all within the same building all week outside of practice. But even within school, we had our own groups of friends, right? We had our own circles, and we would see each other in the halls or see each other at different stuff, but we weren't actually hanging out with each other in our free time until much later, like until the next generation of kids started coming in, and we
Yeah.
were bringing more people in, and then we started saying like, well, actually, I like hanging out with these people, or this go, and the
Well,
mindset
you were
of like,
older. You were
Yeah.
adults by then.
yeah, if not almost adults, like
Yeah.
I think the idea of all this time, we would never have spent time together, but then we were weekly spending an hour or more with each other, and then intensive weeks, and then just creating is very intimate, for lack of better words. Like it's a very intimate thing when you're creating with someone else, you're making with someone else.
Yes.
You start building those connections, right? And so I think that's kind of where when we talked about our trip, where I would have fights with other people, like not physical fights, but the disagreements or anger, frustration, it came from a place where we felt safe. And I think that was one of the biggest blessings of the theater company, was the fact that you created a safe space. And that was very fundamental moving forward into the later years for upcoming people joining us, and that they saw this as a place to be creative, but a place where you could be safe to be creative,
Yeah.
right?
No, for sure.
I would like to ask Mark, out of all of the productions that he did related to music, which first of all, which was the most challenging, and which was the most rewarding.
From a musical perspective. Well, the most challenging was not for me, but for the musicians, was Little Shop of Horrors. And then,
You're not going to say Sweeney Todd?
that was next. Sweeney Todd. Seeing Sweeney Todd on Broadway with the Pit was, first of all, great, but secondly, only reinforced the fact that it was bordering on the absurd, if I may, for us to try a Sondheim musical. but we managed, we pulled it off.
And for someone, Mark, for someone who is not a fan of musical theater, you were on this stage more than once in incredible roles, doing incredible work. You would have anyone fooled. Like people would always honestly, people are like, he must have been doing this his whole life. And when Cindy and I would chuckle about it because we know what your real, like how much you actually love musical theater, but you were good. You were really good. And I think like that comes from your expertise and from your understanding and your dedication to what you do too. So
Well, I mean, it's not that
at
I
least
hate theater, carte blanche, but I am very, very happy that I got to do Fiddler on the Roof.
So in that case, can you please release Andrew Lloyd Webber and let him out into
No, no. He's staying in his Skinner box.
yeah.
And it's Lloyd Webber to you, apparently. Yeah.
Sorry, I had to interject.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It's just, yeah.
But for Sweeney Todd, I mean, you were on stage for a big part of that too.
For a bit, yeah.
Yeah. So even with those musicians too, like you're wearing several hats. Like Cindy, you too were on stage for Fiddler and like there's tons of times where we are on stage and we're also directing or we're also doing like music. Our choreographer was always in the shows too, right? Like so we were wearing several hats that some of us we liked to wear more than the others, but we were in the middle of all of it too. So it isn't like we were distant like from the performance. We were so involved in that as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, Sweeney Todd, Little Shop music. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think the stuff that was most rewarding for me was the stuff that was self-penned by Cindy and the company, like "Oh Airplaneth," and then later on the Peter Pan one, and I really liked to be perfectly frank. And what I think I enjoyed the most was that I felt, I suppose to put it churlishly, through that time I was just always so angry about the whole, if I can call it, American Idol mentality, that people felt that they couldn't do anything unless it was, ultimate professional, super perfect, what I would call just pap, just completely meaningless, shallow stuff that's all nice and bright and shiny and appeals to the lowest common denominator. And really for what? I mean, that's not the rock and roll estate at all. And you have all these kids who want to write, but they've already been pressed down by a society that says, no, you mustn't write, because only really super special individuals do that. And I thought, that's ridiculous. So being able to give, not even pointers or anything, but be able to give from my own writing experience, I guess, just sort of bridges for people. They'd have an idea and then they'd want a bridge to the next idea or something like that, and then build a song out of it. I loved that. That was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and excuse me, I also think too that when you're like talking about the whole American Idol thing, one thing that we always brought up was that in other countries, everyone learned to sing. This whole idea that only some people could sing is that everyone could sing, and that you sang all the time. Community sang all day. It was like part of school. It wasn't just the select people that had great voices, because everyone can learn how to sing. People think that's not true, but they can.
No, in Quebec, I just the other day I was walking down the road, and we have a lot of people from all over the world, from Francophone countries particularly, obviously, coming to Quebec. And what I notice is that there's so many more people now who will be walking along the streets and just singing to themselves or humming to themselves. When I was growing up, they would have you probably institutionalized, Mark was humming a Beatles tune, send him to Pinoca, that kind of thing. Whereas the reality is that folks, I have an old tape of my mom and her mom singing The Hills of Tyrone, old English folk number, and neither of them thought that they were great vocalists. But this was what people did. They would learn, they would harmonize, for Pete's sake. But they would do it because they enjoyed the music and and it was a more organic thing again. It was not professionalized and turned into a can of corn.
And I think people find, like, I agree with you, Mark. People find that strange. I don't know if it's just the podunk reality of small town, live in Alberta, but like a few years back, I was invited to a student that was graduating, and I had her in band, I had her in theater and drama, I had her, and she had a bunch of friends. It's kind of, I think there's these little bubbles of places where like music's a pretty big deal and it becomes people's world, their lives, their everything. I remember sitting at this graduation party and there's a group of teenagers and they're sitting in a circle and they're all like singing in harmony, like singing these songs that they've learned at camp or they've learned like for music festival or they've done this. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself like, this is weird. But I'm like, no, it's not. Like,
Yeah, it's not
this is
weird.
awesome. Like, why do I have that mindset of like, why can't people just get together and say, oh, and then start harmonizing? That's
Yeah.
considered uncommon now, or I hate the word weird, but it is. But I think that's one of the things is like, I think what gave us the sense of safety was the fact that we could be outwardly expressive through music, through verse,
other
through
thing
whatever we're doing.
that I always hit home about and then was later justified because another student had gone to Grant MacEwan and was told the same thing that I said all along is so you pick a character, you're going to cast someone, you don't, your goal is, and I want to have the perfect singer. You want to have someone who the audience is going to relate to and believe is that character. So once you do that, and if they sing and their notes, they're not note by note perfect, you're already invested in them as the character. So you're not concerned if their singing is perfect. And I think we all know this when Les Mis came out, how trashed some of those people were because
Yeah,
from
that was
Broadway
just
because it was so ridiculous because the rest of us
Yeah.
were like, we love them in this role.
the
And
criticism
the
was so
fact,
grossly unfair. Grossly
Yeah.
unfair. I really and it's a good point, Cindy. It's exactly the thing is did they bring out the character properly? Well, the answer is yes. Hugh Jackman was just fine,
well,
folks.
and the crazy thing is he had musical theater background. That
Yeah,
was where he
exactly.
started. So it
Oh,
was crazy.
Oklahoma! I remember him in
Yeah,
Oklahoma. Yeah,
yeah,
and I think the other side is too like the reality is, and I think we talked about this in the last podcast, Cindy. But sometimes I feel like my memory of what we did is more grandiose than maybe the viewers saw it. Like it was a
yeah.
big deal. Like it was a big deal for me in the moment, and it was incredible. And it could have been perfection, right? I know it wasn't perfect. I know there was tons of mistakes, but I also think about the fact that although this group of the original cast, not all of us were great singers. Not all of us could dance. Not all of us could. Some of us struggled with just being on stage, let alone acting. But I think the magic in the fact was that even for those that had solos or songs that they're singing by themselves, they were so believable. Like you loved them because they created the character, they became the
Yes.
character, and that's what I tell my students all the time is I don't want to see you on stage. Like I care about you as an individual, one on one, but on stage you need to be somebody else. And I'm like I don't care how you do it. I can help you. I can give you tips and tricks, but you need to sell to the audience that you are not you. You're someone else, and I think that's what we did, right? Like I won't name people by names, but like the individuals that played, like I'll just take a little shot for example, our Audrey, right? Like she embodied that role. She exemplified it, and did she hit every note? I don't remember, but didn't matter because between our Audrey and our Seymour, it was believable.
Yes.
There was on stage chemistry. There was a connection. There was a friendship that was there and clear. And I think that's where a lot of the magic came from, was the fact that, okay, maybe it wasn't spot on pitch perfect, but did it have to be? No.
No.
That character is going through hell and back. So is it realistic that they would be this perfect operatic musical piece? No.
Well, and I
I think of
remember
Ellen
going
Green,
to,
like the original actress that played Audrey, right?
yeah.
Her voice, her act, like the way she would perform. She was an actor first, and that was one of the greatest things about the character.
Well, and I
Sorry.
was just going to say, what was I going to say? I think just the whole idea that, like even now as we move forward, like, and the world is moving forward, people are missing that whole point, because when I did go to productions from Grant McEwen, because I had family members that were taking and so I would go to see their productions. We would leave the audience, and you could tell people behind us only came because to hear the music. And they would actually be pointing out, well, so and so's notes here weren't, as good, or this, but this person like just nailed it. And I remember thinking to myself, the lead of this particular production, again, doesn't really matter which one it is, but he could sing perfectly, but I didn't believe he was that character at all.
Yeah. Well, my example always that way is Zira Mostel, whom I really admire, of blessed memory, was Tevye in the original Broadway. But to me, it sounds like 40th Street Yiddish Street Theater, the way he does it. A Fiddler on the Roof sounds crazy, no? And then you've got T'Pol, who, for Pete's sake, was born in Israel. He is Israeli. And didn't have as strong a voice as Zero, but just, when I did Tevye, that's all I did, was I just pretended I was T'Pol, because he's it. He's it,
Yeah. And I value when performers take on the character and make it their own too, right? Like I've students with the last production. They go and there's some pretty big names of people who played the roles that they've played in the show, and I said, that's them. I'm like, take what they do well, adapt that. Like, what did you like about that? Okay, do you think you can do that? Do you want to do that? No. Okay, then how are you going to do it, or how can you make that adaptation? Like we just finished doing Beetlejuice, for heaven's sakes, and my Beetlejuice have been begging me for years, like, let's do this. And I was on the fence. I was like, nah. I was just kind of like, I don't know. But once I saw the dedication and how this individual brought it to life, I was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. Of course we're doing it. Like, if I have someone that they weren't Alex Brightman, they weren't redoing what's already been done. They already had their whole persona created, and I said, I would be a fool to not let you do this.
Yeah.
And it was great.
Yeah.
Right. And was it standout? For sure. But did I have great people around them? Yeah. And I think when you have people that are not just dedicated, but they bring their character to life, other people will step up to that and
yes.
say, "Oh, well, I need
Good
to be.
point.
I need to be on the same. If they're going to put that amount of energy and life into what they're doing, then I better play ball too, right?" And I think that's another thing for us too in the beginning was like it was great. We were great, but we could see each other and it wasn't competitive. I would never say it was ever competitive in the beginning. It was like I want to contribute. I want to add. I want to be on the same level that this is doing. And I think that's what made the shows like Grease, Little Shop, Fiddler, Airplane, if all the things we did was we we understood where everyone was at, and we were trying to get up to match everyone, right? And I think that was another one of the big reasons why we had a ton of fun, but we also had a lot of great feedback.
Yeah, there's an interior competition. I don't think art should be a competition at all. But one of the reasons I don't think it should be is, amongst other things, in a group setting, you're already competing against yourself within the context of other people to say, wow, that was great, as you said. Oh, I really got to push harder to really help to make this work better. I know I can do better. That's a competition, an interior one, and that's plenty in my view. You don't need to worry about going to some festival and having some adjudicator say that one set of people doing their very best is better than another set of people doing their very best. You know.
I think and I think because we talked about like the whole idea of adjudication before, and just it certainly has its place. I really do believe it has its place.
I've only ever used, I think that's another thing to talk about. Cindy, you never auditioned. I don't think,
No.
it wasn't until Little Mermaid when your arm was held behind your back and you're forced to do it, right?
Yeah.
But you never auditioned, and I think prior to our first rehearsals, prior to anything, you already had the vision. You already knew our skills, our abilities. I talked about this with Little Shop, with my interview with you. You saying, this is my vision, this is what I have planned, this is where I think I can see you. You already knew what we had to offer, or what you saw, the potential you saw in us. So it was, we never had to worry about, well, I want to be that role. I want to play, I want to play the lead. I want to be Dorothy. It was never like that, right? Like because
That
we already knew,
definitely
like,
that definitely came later.
and I think
Which
that
is-
was I think it was very detrimental when that happened.
Yes.
We saw people pulling the carpet out of underneath other people getting jealous, people getting frustrated, being, I can do that better, I can be better, and I think because we never had that mindset, it was always like, here's your role, run with it, and we're like, sweet. I never sat there being, oh man, I wish I was playing this. I wish I was playing the sadistic dentist. It was never like that. It was always like, Cindy's right. Like you put the work, you put the work in,
Yeah,
and
right.
we're bringing your vision to life, and we did,
Not,
right? And
I have to inject there because there's a lot of sense of humor. You told me I was right after. Lots of people tell me I was right after. Like I would have someone in mind for a certain role, and you're like, oh, I don't think that's going to work. I don't think-"
okay, if
And
we're
then at the end
talking,
of it, everybody's coming back and going, oh, no, you're
if
right.
you're talking
But-
about Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat, that's off
well,
limits.
no,
We're not-
we can't talk about that because you hate the production, so that's obviously doesn't count. But I mean, all the way through, it was like that for me.
Really?
People, people would go like, "Oh no, that's not going to work for that."
But
person.
do you
And
feel like we cut each other down though? Like
No.
do you
no,
No.
no,
That's
Like-
I've often had an analogy about the what happened to VTP in sense of what has happened in society in a greater sense. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a big National Film Board of Canada fan, and there's an old film from the 40s about hockey, and there's one scene that shows kids all on their own going out to a pond, sweeping the snow off the ice, lighting a match, inside their skates to warm them up before they put them on. And they played the game themselves. There were no adults anywhere to be found. And then different things happened decades later. And I would say that's an analogy to kind of what happened in terms of the progression of VTP. And that
Right.
when you had young people as ultimately the engine in their own right, it was great because it was organic. And then the minute you have other influences trying to direct it in a way that's explicit, or that's not the word I'm looking for, but that instead of it being for its own sake and the art for its own sake, it becomes only a means to an end.
Yeah.
And that's where things go wrong.
I also I fondly think of, this is weird. I'm a location person. I connect emotions and feelings to like physical places.
Sure.
And this is gonna sound weird, and maybe you guys will understand what I'm talking about, but the stairway of the Alumni Hall on the left side. So the one
So
that we
stage right or stage left?
well, yeah.
Stage right?
But I can remember, yeah. So I can remember the stairway. Like when you'd open those doors, you could walk down the stairs, then you have to take the side doors to get into the actual the hall.
Oh,
Right?
that one. Yeah.
So it like white walls. They ended up putting like pictures down of like some of the college's performances and stuff. Well, that would be. But I can remember being in there, and I think it was the three of us. Something was going south fast. I don't know what was happening, but I think Cindy, you would, and I'm trying to remember the terminology or the phrasing that you would use, but I think the biggest thing when it came to parents and kids, actors, anyone that was on board, you would always mention you would always say they don't see the picture, or they don't get the vision, they don't see the vision, or
Well,
like
they
they
don't.
don't,
The
they
problem is
don't,
they didn't see it's a big picture. They could only see their
but
child and
it
how it
was,
related to their child. They couldn't see
but it
the
was
overall
frantic.
thing.
Because it would be so frustrating that it was like beating a dead horse, where it would be like, you don't understand what we're doing. You don't understand. It's on a whole different, almost spiritual plane of being, where it's like, there is a rhyme and a reason to what we do. This isn't about the individual. This is about the individual as a whole, right? We are one. Like that mindset, right? And I've never been able to put into words like the way you did, but I've adapted that to say, like, we're not a bunch of individuals. We're a collective. We're a group. We're a group of people that have the same vision, the same goals, the same dreams, right? And when people didn't get in line with it, or when people would not give themselves the space to understand what our real mission was and what we were doing, it created barriers,
Oh, sure.
right? And I feel like that was one of the hardest thing is, how do we keep this beautiful world from getting corrupted from the outside, who didn't agree with what we were doing? We're saying, you need a star, we need this, you need, like, it needs to be something that the society expects, right? And I think holding on to that for as long as you did, as all of us did, was ultimately the biggest battle. And in my opinion, you could disagree, but I think trying to keep the purity of what we did was what kept us doing what we did at the level that we did, right? And I always saw us with the shows that we do, that they were great. Like, yeah, there was mistakes, but we did really, really good work, and we made it as professional as we could, to a point where a lot of people would sit back and say, "That was incredible. How did you do that?" And a few people would point out like, well, this could be better, or that could be better, this could be better, but they didn't get it, right? And I think in the end, or in the latter years too, going in and seeing shows like there was a big change in how things were done, and the pressures that were put on you guys was different too, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, one of the things that this brings up to me is that I don't think that that's meant to be done, but I think people want to, if we're talking about a parent and their child, and they're focusing on their child to the detriment of understanding the bigger picture, is they feel that they need to make sure that the child is able to feel good in themselves as an individual. The irony being, of course, is that the only way that they're going to truly feel like an individual is in the context of what a theater company does in terms of a production, where they, as the individual, are, again, organically, I hate using that word all the time, but that's the only one I can come up with, organically part of a whole, even though their individuality is crystal clear and well seen.
And I think the best part of all of that as well is the fact that we that individuality, that opportunity, like we understood who we were because of what we did in the grand scheme of things, and we were always valued and lifted to know that, yeah, we might be that tree on the stage for the scene, but we were the most important tree on that stage, right? And they couldn't happen without us. And the teamwork of like groups and scenes and settings of how each scene was played. I don't ever feel like anyone ever felt like they were in the background, right? Like everyone had their spot in the sun, I guess, right? But
Well, I think I would say that um, there, as things winded down, which we will be going from the beginning right to the end, which is why we don't know how long this is going to take, is that's really what ended things. Unfortunately, at the end, is because that we could not maintain that belief system because, it's kind of like, a house and you get a few little bugs in or something, and then they slowly eat away. And if there's like a big enough bug that can convince the other bugs that, to take over the house, well, that you can't do anything about that because it's already in motion, and you just have to like hold back and say, okay, I just have to do damage control until you know it's done. And I mean, that was, I don't I don't regret uh, the changes, you know, because there was so many people that did still get out of it what they wanted to, like right up until the end. But there was no, you've lost your foundation. Your house is sitting on sand at that point.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and
Which
I mean, it's probably the most ambitious thing about VTP that I can think of is the fact that it stood entirely in the face of the way people see things in terms of amateur versus professional. Because we don't teach Latin anymore, people fail to understand that amateur comes from the root of to love in Latin. And what would you rather see? Would you, it's, I mean, the crude analogy is if you're married and you have a loving relationship with a married person, that's love. But you can have a professional relationship with somebody that has some of those activities involved, and that's hiring an escort. So what is real professionalism, right? And what is real amateur? Real amateur to me is Do you love it? If you love it, you're going to put your all into it. And
Oh
it'll
my
be
gosh.
as good, if not better than professional.
Are you telling me that all you need is love?
No, but I am telling you that love is all you need.
Well, I think we should probably leave it there for this episode.
Okay.
What a good way to end this one. But more to come. And that's a wrap for this episode. Huge thank you to Mark and Cindy for joining me as we took a trip down memory lane, shared some stories from the good old days. We had a lot of fun reminiscing, and trust me, there's a plenty more stories where those came from. So stay tuned. We'll catch you next time with even more laughs, memories, and great conversations. Thanks for listening. This is Mike. Hold on tight. Don't lose sight of that ghost light, and we'll see you next episode.